Hello travelers, and welcome back to another First Impressions video. This time we're going to be looking at the releases that were previewed today for the February 2026. So we have a unit for the Scions, Feudom, and for Eachann. Before we jump in though, if you are enjoying this content or any of the other content on the channel, battle reports and unit reviews, please remember to like, subscribe, and follow. Helps other people see when things are released and pop up in the algorithms, as well as you, and also lets me know that you are watching. I'm going to be giving my first impressions. This isn't super refined takes, so if you have different thoughts or if you've seen other combos, if you think I'm way off, please let me know in the comments. Always like chatting with you guys and hearing what your thoughts on these new units are. But with that, let's jump on in with the Scions of Yaldabaoth. In February, the Scions will be getting the regular release of the Marked. This is a unit we have already seen in Warcrow Adventures, but now we're getting the regular released, not the PVC plastic versions, but the brand new and, according to Warsenal page, in this case, Siocast models for them. I think this is nice. They definitely keep the character of the Warcrow Adventures ones, but I appreciate and I like the much more dynamic poses. Some variety in the horns. There's a bunch of different setups. It's actually, I find it funny, the bottom right one actually looks like the modification I made to one of my Marked, where I took the set of small horns from one Marked and gave one Marked both sets of small horns. So it's kind of funny that happened. But otherwise, great models. Got a tactical plinth for the sergeant there. But with that, let's get into, what a lot of people find more interesting, which is the profile. So on the screen, we see the old Marked profile, but we're going to be getting rid of that for the new Marked profile. Now, immediately we see that the Marked went from 35 to 30 points, which is nice. The 35-point category was getting a bit crowded with the Anointed and Liberated already in that category. So having a 30-point unit is nice. That said, losing one morale, which they did, I think will hurt this unit pretty hard. Is probably the biggest thing I'm not a big fan of with this unit, and will hold them back. That said, it to me just means that this unit will probably end up wanting a character attached to them that will increase their morale, but we can get to that a bit later. They also lost the Blades of Catrador ability, which is still on the intact, and that's the ability that allows them to make it so their opponents use hollow shields instead of solid shields when they're attacking them. It was a very good ability, helped boost their damage, particularly against things that add blocks to their defense roll, either through switches or automatic, like, for example, the Bucklermen in Embersig, who are very good at just adding a ton of shields through their switches. Well, now those switches do nothing. But Blades of Catrador is dead and gone, but only sort of. We'll see in a second that in the new version of Orichalcum implants that they have, they can kind of get it back permanently without needing to spend command tokens. Otherwise, the attack and defense profiles, from what I can tell, are identical. The switches are identical. And the stress modifiers are also identical. But now, stressing is going to be a lot harder to do because you're only one morale. But the next big change on their card is they have this new and really more interesting in my mind Orichalcum implants ability. So this is a permanent ability that when you deploy the Marked, you're going to get to choose one of 4 abilities to activate, depending on the characters that you have on the field. Now, it's important to note, you need to have one of these characters in the company. So it means in your list, they don't need to be on the field yet. For example, if they're scouting in attached to something like Gobblers. But as long as they're in your company, you get to choose. You can choose their ability, and there's 4 abilities. If you have a Progenitor Sculptor, you can give the Marked +1 Conquest. If Master Uruk's in your company, when they charge, they get that ability that your opponent only gets to cancel hits with hollow shields. Now, it's only on the charge, but you can kind of get it back. If you have a tutor, you can make it so you just gain 2 command tokens. Now, it's when you deploy, which means you'll be getting these command tokens after you've rolled for initiative, which means that these command tokens won't help you get the extra orange die. But if you feel like you need extra command tokens, tutor. And finally, the needle allows the unit to ignore the first damage suffered each activation. All these are upsides, as opposed to the old ability where you took damage to use it. So that's great. And my big thing, I really like this ability. One, because I think it's interesting design, but also it allows some flexibility at the table. So because you decide this at deployment, you can adjust your marked to fit the needs of whatever mission you're playing or whatever enemy you're playing. So let's say you're up against an enemy that, as you're deploying units, or maybe the faction in general, you're seeing they actually have very low conquest. And your army is set up that really you're going to be out conquesting them without too much effort. So maybe you choose, in that case, not to use the Progenitor Sculptor. Whereas if you're against a faction like, say, Embersig, where they're usually pretty high on conquest, maybe that extra bit of conquest will make a big difference. To me, the tutor ability, I probably won't use very much. I rarely find my Scions list run out of command tokens, but if you are, if you have use for them, it's a good idea. For me, the two that I can see myself using more frequently, mainly because I bring Master Uruk and the Needle more than the Sculptor. Tutor's the most list, but I don't think I need the command tokens. It's Master Uruk's ability and the Needles. The Master Uruk ability does make them hit harder, which is nice. If you need them to be hitting harder, that's where you lean. Whereas the Needle is just added damage resistance. Now, looking at this unit, I can see them. Again, we were talking about morale being a big thing for them. Getting the ability to stress to give that auto damage is nice for them. So for me, I can see maybe putting something like a First Anointed in them, where now they have 2 extra morale, they get a built-in shield, they can add shields with exclamation marks when they attack. And in that case, maybe you use the Needle's ability, and now that unit's a lot more durable. Now they're also having, that damage reduction. So again, this is a really cool ability. It's very flexible. If you need them to hit harder, you do Uruk. If you need them to, DR more, you Needle. And it's nice that you don't actually need the model to be attached to the unit. They just need to be in your list. So you could have Master Uruk join this unit, which I think is a fair point, a fair idea. He makes them more durable. He gives them the switch for 2 specials, canceling a block, which helps their damage output. Not if they're using the Master Uruk implant ability on the charge, but otherwise it helps boost them. But he also gives them an additional morale. And importantly, they no longer suffer stress from losing combat, which means, if you get charged and you lose combat, you're still going to have a morale for when you hit back if you want to stress or if you want to activate a second time. So for me, right now, I'm thinking Uruk or the First Anointed would be my go-to people to put in the marked, but it's early, so we're at the trying stage. Another point in favor for Uruk is that they still have loyalty until the end, which is that once per round reroll either an attack or a defense die if you have a high command in the unit or within 12. Now, one of the nice things, if Uruk's in them, you get that reroll. Otherwise, you need to be having a high command outside, which, I find I do less. So I think you're more likely to be getting that loyalty until the end each round if Uruk starts in them. And maybe he jumps out, but then he's probably going to be close to them after he jumps out. So those are my thoughts on the marked. The morale is going to hit them the worst, but it is nice to have a 30 point. I think they're definitely an interesting unit and one that I'm going to need to be experimenting with. Okay, moving on to Feudom. Feudom got the Feudom Archers. We got some nice pinup. I love the classic peasant bowl cut. These are the peasants. These are knights. We've been seeing knights for a few releases. Now we're back to some good old peasantry with their longbows. Got the models here. I like them. I think they're all supposed to be having shot their arrows, so we don't need to worry about having thin breakable arrows. If you really want to put a string on your bows, you can. What I've done in the past for things is just use very fine fishing line, and just kind of string the bow that way. The nice thing is that because there's not supposed to be an arrow in flight, the arrows are all supposed to be in flight or the bow's just not drawn. You can just do the straight line. You don't need to worry about stringing the string to the hand and then back around. So really cool, very, peasant-y looks to them. You got the bowl cut in the top left. You got the the receding hairline on the top right. You have the head scarf on the bottom left. So overall, I really like them. And more importantly, their profile is pretty darn good. They come in at only 20 points, which is super cheap for a range 18 unit that still has solid dice. As a Scions player, I'm jealous. Our 2 model 4 wounds in total marked marksmen have a worse shot and are 5 points more. But yeah, being this cheap is really good. They still have a good offensive profile. And I think what really makes them interesting and is going to make them really shine is their thumb ring ability. So what this does is it allows you to target an allied unit that's within 12 strides of you. It does require line of sight, so you just need to be able to see the allied unit. And then when an enemy declares a charge or an assault against that friendly unit, the Feudom Archers can take a stress and perform hold and shoot. Now, because they're performing hold and shoot, and it doesn't say you don't, you still will have to put an activated on them. But the other nice thing about it is when you do this, you ignore line of sight. So this is them volleying the arrows over their friends. This is really good ability, right? This isn't a unit that you're probably going to be wanting to activate a lot. And because you can you don't need to worry about line of sight, you can set these guys up on maybe one of your back objectives, maybe the front end of one of your back objectives, while your more durable night line starts moving up towards the enemy. And then if the enemy charges or assaults that night unit, you can pepper them with arrows on the way in. You can almost view this as an extra activation, because realistically you probably wouldn't be activating the archers. Like, if they're kind of back and out of the fight, maybe you're not activating them. So now whenever your opponent is charging or assaulting that unit within 12, or the first time each round, because there'll be stress cap afterwards, this unit still gets to do a shot, which is really good. Even if it doesn't do a ton, it's still a nice little peppering. If you do get to shoot at them for real, you do get that nice switch to vulnerable. But I think realistically, this unit is primarily going to be sitting on an objective and helping add some additional pressure as people charge or assault your allies. One other thing with the thumb ring ability to note, it does say charge or assault, which is actually better than a normal stand and shoot, which is normally just charge. So yeah, I think it's pretty solid for a 20-point unit. Can't really ask for more. Being only 20 points does, in my mind, open up some interesting and more varied wide builds. So like a lot of units builds for the Feudom when paired with Guizarm. Yeah. The Guizarm are already very good for 20 points, and I can easily see a list where you bring 2 Guizarmier and a Feudom Archer, and then fill out the points with some heavier knights, like the foot knights, and then some characters. So, doing so, you can go wider if this is something with like a Magister, the guy that likes the high command that likes mixing, noble knights and non-noble knight units. I think it really opens things up. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these guys, and for good reason. Okay, and last but definitely not least, we have Eachann, and they get Eachann, the Great Centaur Elf. So this guy is awesome looking. He has this giant mace that's like a stick just clasping a rock. All the tattoos. I look forward to seeing all the freehand, all these little armor plates and talismans, whatever, all over him. Extremely detailed art. and they really captured it with the model. You have this great pose. You can see him clearly rearing up to both kick somebody with his hooves while smacking him with his giant mace. This guy looks awesome, and I'm very excited to see him in all the different, schemes that the CNN players seem to be doing between the standard spring look to the autumn look to the guy in the States that was doing the cherry blossoms. So this guy looks sweet, and his profile is very good in my opinion. So 35 points is a reasonable amount. He's a 5-wound model. He can't join a unit, so unlike other factions, mounted characters, because he is cavalry, he can't join a unit, which is kind of in keeping with a lot of the CNN releases we've seen. Their support pack characters all couldn't join units, so it's kind of leaning into this idea of a lot of the CNN kind of running around doing their own thing. That said, he does bring 2 command tokens, which for CNN is quite a lot. And they've been having some decent command abilities popping up in their factions, so that's definitely a nice bonus for them. And, he, will see, has a good command ability as well. So as we look at his profile, he has that good cavalry move of 3/3. He has a charge of 13. So effectively, he can assault 14 strides or assault 17, which really gives him a nice high threat range. And this is a guy that you're going to be wanting to run in and smash people. We see his attack pool of a red and 3 oranges. And if you stress, you just get an extra hit and an extra red. So this is some pretty high damage potential, especially for a solo, especially when you're stressing. So yeah, if you're running in and punching with him, he's hitting really hard. And then he has this kind of insane switch of a single special lets you shove your opponent and then place yourself engaged with it. So if you just get, you can get up to 5. If you get 3, 5 specials on this roll, you can just push your opponent to the, from one side of the board to the other. Not quite, but still, if you think about it, every time you shove somebody 3, they're, getting 5 strides closer to something else. Now, it is shove, so it's directly away from you, but still, you can just bully somebody off an objective while keeping yourself on it, which is a lot of fun, or pushing them towards allies, or because you're tricky CNNLs, pushing them further away from their allies, but so that then your ambusher can jump in and get them or something. So really cool. I didn't say it, but he is also Nemorous. So yet another Nemorous unit for the CNN, which means the Walker of the Leaf Storm can teleport people into near him, and all the different benefits of that. If you're playing Leoslaith, he'll always get that damage reduction. So his 2 greens and a black makes it, gets him that much a little bit more tanky. So yeah, his base profiles, his attacks, his defense, pretty solid. Really, between that attack and the skill, the Waybreaker that we're about to talk about, he really is a displacement expert. He's really good at displacing enemies that he punches, or with the range Waybreaker, just clearing objectives with a ranged attack. So the ability is he gets to target an enemy within 12 strides, and then he resolves a ranged attack of 3 orange and a hit against the target. That's not the best damage. It's you'll probably get a couple hits. So realistically, maybe you'll get a damage through, but that's not what you're here for. What you're really here for is the second part of the attack, which is you then shove 3 all units that are within 3 strides of the target. So that would include the target, because they're within 3 of themselves, and anybody else. So what's this good for? This is a good way to just clear an objective. So between his 3/3 move, so because the 4 stride base, the large base, he's essentially moving, getting 14 strides closer to an enemy and then targeting him at 12. So that's 26 strides. So from 26 strides away, he can move up towards an objective and then just hit, whatever unit is center or centermost on it. And if he hits them, doesn't need to do damage, he hits them, and then they get shoved 3, and their allies get shoved 3, and your guys get shoved 3. It doesn't distinguish. So you will shove 3 all units. So if you have allies on it, you will also get pushed. But that said, it can just help clear off an objective. If you position properly, he could even run onto the objective, staying 3 outside of 3 of the target, hit that target with the good old Waybreaker, push them and their allies off, and then be left on the objective and take it. So again, really good way of clearing objective, lots of displacement, and helps score, and scoring is how you win games. Then the final thing, as I was saying before, he has this cool command ability called Stomp the Ground. And it's really good for, once he takes the ability, the objective, like we just talked about, by pushing all your opponents off of it, now he can stomp the ground. And for a duration of 3 turns, the surface around 7 strides around him is considered rugged. So this will prevent people from charging him that don't have the rugged keyword. This will slow people that are activating and moving through the rugged area. Now it does end when he declares a move, so you want to use this usually probably at the end of his activation. So after he's moved wherever he wants to be, and he kind of just plants his feet and says, "No, this is my area. You're going to be slowed trying to get to me. You can't charge me. Come on in." The other nice thing is this does affect allies, but there are a lot of CNN units that either have ways to place or are themselves preferred terrain rugged. So what's he really good for? He hits pretty hard, but hitting hard's nice, but I think the real value here is his ability to just do a lot of displacement and then really help try and make it hard for your opponents to reclaim objectives they've been pushed off of. So very exciting release. If I had to rank them, I say the Marked are probably the least exciting, which partially is a product of them being still very similar to what we already had. Then I'd put the Feudom Archers, who I think are really good. But overall, I think Eachann is definitely the most exciting to me. And I'm increasingly jealous of all the cool things that CNN gets. And I know eventually I'm going to cave and play them. But I would love to hear your thoughts on all 3 units. Am I crazy? Are some of these things either better or worse than I said? Are there other cool combos or combo-specific things that I haven't mentioned? Please let me know. And as I said before, if you can subscribe, and follow, it would be appreciated. And if you do feel like you want to try and support the channel financially, it's definitely not needed. Although, if you want to, it's appreciated. There is a link to a Buy Me Coffee in the description below. Or if you're going to be ordering anything from Corvus Belli's store directly, there is an affiliate link in the description as well, that if you use, it gives the channel a bit of a kickback, all of which we'll just keep going back to keep trying to improve the content that we're doing here. So with that, this has been my first impressions of the February 2026 units, and may the dice be ever in your favor.